All right. So let me start this off by saying that I think that Superman, the James Gunn directed movie, has its strength in showing a strong message, but lacks in depth in terms of plot connectivity, direction of narrative, world building, and sort of, I guess, grounding itself to the audience. I think there's a lot of things that just happen and moments that don't seem as narratively or emotionally motivated. It seems as if characters say and do things without actually having a direct intention towards it. But overall, the movie still provides a fun and strong message. I think the movie is ambitious in its sense of scale and has a lighthearted feel towards it, and attempts to convey, it attempts to convey the heart, in which the movie is all about heart. I think if you removed Superman from the equation, and if you removed a lot of the characters from the equation without having to name them as like a superhero or this like Lex Luthor or Superman or Mr. Terrific or Hawkgirl, I think you would still get a solid movie with a heart. But I think within that same aspect, there's a lot of character within that in which I can remove the name to these characters and it will feel like the same exact movie. And I think that in itself does a disservice because, again, there isn't much, I want to say, emotional connectivity that I felt within watching. There were strong characters and there were character moments and things that persuaded me to feel for these characters. But in a sense, there's a lot of sort of problems that I find within how it is written and how it is paced. It is not to say that I did not like the movie itself. And so I think there's a lot of small things that do add up over time. I think visually it's also not the strongest sort of striking sort of movie in a sense. There isn't a lot of moments, grandiose moments that really truly capture ooh, this is a Superman moment. Those still shots or those action shots. I think there's moments in which the movie tries to attempt them, but sometimes they either come off as either too forced or, it comes off as sort of irrelevant in a sense. I feel like what the movie didn't sell me on was the fact that Superman can save these people. And it felt like there's a lot of corners cut within the plot that seemingly conveniently wrapped ends towards things that they didn't want to capture or things that they didn't want to go towards. And I felt like that did a disservice to me within watching it. It felt convenient and too convenient, but then it's also to be expected from a movie that's trying to portray itself as a blockbuster and, trying to make, a quadrillion, $1 billion amount in the box office. So, of course, I'm not going to see, terrific writing. I do think the writing for the characters is the strongest, but I don't think the characters nor the location nor the plot have enough time to really allow yourself to sit and really breathe within the space, which is why I think there's a lot of problems within the way the ways that the movie tries to attempt to world build, because it's clearly trying to establish a greater and bigger universe, the more grand DCU, as James Gunn puts it, especially in the beginning of writing it, gods and monsters. He wants to create these larger-than-life pillars, these characters that exist within narratively. And I think by the end of the movie, you do see that there is a strong influence for metahumans and super ability people to exist within this world. But I think even there's one thing that aches within the back of my mind is how far in advance are we in this world of James Gunn's? And I know we're still establishing it, but how far are we within this world to really know the extent of where superheroes are, and how long will that take? Because it feels like, yes, we're on our baby feet, but it felt like the world could have been much more expansive than it is. It felt like we got a small glimpse of a very small pocket size of the world, and I don't know, there was a lot of stakes that, and direction-wise, that it didn't necessarily make me feel like there was enough risk within taking. It felt like I knew that within watching this movie that everyone was going to make it out alive and the bad guy is going to prevail, or not prevail, but be defeated. And it's not to say that I want to see movies in which the bad guy prevails, but, there should be repercussions as to things. Like, there wasn't necessarily any sacrifice that it took within Superman having to choose between different lives, or sacrifice in which, only so much Superman can do, and the ability of hope within what it takes to be Superman. I think there's a lot of things that do get brought up, lots of topics, lots of duality, but I don't think there's enough that's a consistent theme that it allows you to stay present and allow you to simmer within those ideas, because you sort of get glimpses of things within the movie and then it moves on to other parts of the movie. And I just wish there was more time to sit and be like, okay, this is more direct within the direction of the way that the movie is trying to portray. It felt, I don't know, there's a lot of fun elements to it, but I think, especially that first act for me, it took a while to really get its gears rolling, and it really felt sort of like, oh, this is too convenient of a plot, that this person's gonna do this, and that causes this to do this. And then, it's like a whole, checkerboard of, oh, that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen, that's gonna happen. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing within movies. I do have the problem as a moviegoer of making, predictability is the word, in which I like not knowing where the movie's going to go, and I feel like that's when I know I'm invested, is that when the world encapsulates me within that. But there's too many things within the movie that I felt like it wasn't wide enough, or didn't take enough risk, or it just felt too simple, hero, it gets down, it gets beaten, and then he gets back up, and then he gets beaten and gets back up. I know you're not going to have the same, contemplation as sort of a character like Peter Parker, for example, who is not a god, but deals with more decisions of mortality, and deals with decisions of, what is right, what is wrong, and feels the moral implications of it. I felt like Superman, he is new, so he has his sense of ignorance. It is only his sort of third year being Superman. So he has this ignorance of justice and what should be upheld. But there's a lot of moments where he acts much like a newborn child. And I think that does have that sort of like I guess to me it does have that sort of New 52 type writing for Superman, which I never really liked sort of that type of writing nor era for Superman. I like the beginning of Rebirth for Superman, and I just like having Superman be more well known and established and more stoic, if anything, but not too stoic. Stoic in a sense that parallels to Batman. You know, like he upholds justice and truth and liberty and freedom, but it's held with this strong conviction, and you could feel it within his power. And there wasn't a lot of times in which I felt grounded within knowing that Superman holds this amount of power and that he's holding it well. And I do think that even in the movie, they do make this statement that at the end of the day, he is human, because that is what Superman is, Superman. But I don't know, it just felt like there's so many things within the movie that it struggles to paint a clear picture as to sort of the relationship between things. I think it creates a clear definition of things, but the relationship between things aren't really explored, and sort of things just exist, and they don't feel like they mesh well or work together that much. I feel like there's a lot of things that, while it does have strong character, and it is written in a sense that you can feel each of these characters and you can feel each of these actors playing these characters, and they don't feel like they're reciting text, which is wonderful. But they all feel sort of like they're not connected in any sort of way to each other. Like there isn't the connectivity between the characters that move them along. They're just kind of, everyone sort of plays this role as almost sort of like a MacGuffin, or like convenient to the plot. And while that is helpful and useful for writing, it just feels very amateurish, or sort of very like studio executive, or like, oh, this is the first few drafts, or like, you know, this is what the studio wanted. And I guess that is sort of my critique of sort of other movies that sort of do that in the same sense. When you have these well-known directors create these movies that are blockbuster, or, you know, they're supposed to like make so much money, and there's a lot of sort of lines between like, oh, this is how it ended, and I'm like, oh, that definitely seems like the studio wanted that ending, because if I wrote that, I would have made it like this terrible thing, or like this really like gruesome thing. And I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot of movies lately that don't necessarily have that emotional grip, and I feel like there isn't much connectivity, and I'm sort of wondering like what's happening with these sort of movies. But I do think it is an enjoyable movie. I have all of this to say that I enjoyed the movie, and it was very fun. And for what it was, I'm excited to see where these characters go towards in forth of James Gunn's new universe. I'm excited to see where these characters will grow and blossom. I'm excited to see the foundation of these DC characters like the Justice League, or if we get more mystical things and stuff like that, you know, what other twists and turns are we going to get to these characters. But it does feel like there's a lot of things that Superman sort of feels less than, and I don't know, I just wish it was written in a different way, in a more narratively compelling way, rather than, because I think it has a lot of good ideas, but none of the, like, a lot of the ideas are either you get it and you miss it, or they're not elaborated, like, concisely, you know. It's just like, oh, this idea, and instead of those ideas feeling like it fuels you, it sort of is like, oh, I would love to see more of that. But for what it is, I say I give that movie like a 7. I'll give it a 7. I might watch Thunderbolts later just to see, like, what I'll think of the superhero genre as of a medium. I don't think my camera's in focus. Is it in focus? It isn't. Oh, it's not fully in focus. But what I think of the superhero genre as a medium. But other than that, I think I shall leave it at that.